everybody, I'm Jonathan Randall, and welcome to another episode of How You Like Me Now. As the time of this recording, over 16,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza by Israel. According to the Israeli military, they have killed 2 civilians for every 1 dead Hamas fighter, which is a horrible ratio, by the way. Apparently, though, Israel is starting to cross the threshold for how many civilian Palestinian deaths are acceptable to the United States, and the U.S. is finally being more vocal about not murdering civilians. Still, there hasn't been enough deaths that the U.S. will actually stop sending money and weapons to Israel. Not sure how many Palestinians have to die until the U.S. will stop funding and arming Israeli war crimes. It does seem, though, that the more Palestinian civilians, most of which are women and children that are killed, the more people are starting to realize that what Israel is doing is less self-defense and more genocide. What's your number? How many Palestinian deaths will it take for you to realize what Israel is doing is wrong? The United States has now done the absolute bare minimum it could do and announced this week that they will impose travel bans on extremist Israeli settlers that have been implicated on attacking Palestinians in the West Bank. Not sure that'll really deter any of these settlers from committing violence against Palestinians, considering if they cared about the U.S., they probably wouldn't have left in the first place, thinking they're on some sort of mission from God to take over Palestinian land. But way to make it seem like you're actually doing something on behalf of the Palestinian people while continuing to fund and arm their murder and dispossession. If Biden really wants to do something to stop settler violence, then he should stop giving money to Israel. Illegal settlers keep committing violent acts towards Palestinians, murdering them, destroying their property, driving them from their homes, yet they are rarely called out for what they are: terrorists. According to the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, since October 7th, there has been 314 recorded attacks on Palestinians in the West Bank by settlers, half of which happened while these settlers were being supported by the Israeli military. Does Israel have the right to defend itself? Is a question that has been coming up constantly lately. While what we really should be asking is if Palestinians have the right to defend themselves. Because when illegal settlers attack Palestinians in the West Bank, they sure as hell don't. If a Palestinian tries to defend themselves from an armed settler who attacks them or even enters their home, they are the ones that will be violently arrested and put in administrative detention for however long Israel wants. They can't defend themselves. Their options are these: either leave or die. This week, Netanyahu's corruption trial has resumed. That's right, one of the most evil men in the world is not only a murderer, but is on trial for fraud, bribery, and breach of trust. Israel's scumbag prime minister is a defendant in 3 cases. One for accepting expensive gifts in exchange for political favors, one for negotiating favorable news coverage for legislation that would slow the growth of a rival newspaper, and finally, for granting regulatory favors to Israel's leading telecommunications company for positive news coverage, which he sure needs. He needs all the positive news coverage he could get, and he's going to be going down in history as one of the most hated men ever. If he is convicted, he will be removed from office. But I don't think we should wait that long, and Netanyahu should be removed immediately. I think nothing is a better example of the twisted minds of Israelis and those who support Israel than what they say in an effort to make Israel look good. These are some of my favorites. There are worse countries than Israel. That's right. Who cares about Israel's war crimes and human rights violations? Because other countries are worse. Gotta love that argument. Israel may be bad, but not as bad. Another, that is if Israel wanted to, they could wipe out all Palestinians, but they don't. How amazing of them not to murder a whole group of people. Remember, they want you to know that they could, but they don't. Aren't they the best? Showing restraint? They could be murdering even more people, but they don't, Kudos to Israel. No matter how many thousands of people they kill, just be grateful it's not more, because they totally could do it. The third is that Israel lets people of Gaza know before it bombs the hell out of them. Such kindness. Doesn't matter if they get the message or not, Israel is still going to blow their home to smithereens, but it is letting them know. Do they also send notes to Palestinian prisoners before they beat and sexually assault them? Israel, the good murderers. Sure, they kill children, but they let them know first. And remember, they could kill even more if they wanted to. These aren't arguments for how great Israel is. They are examples of how twisted they are. So this is one of the more difficult topics that I've ever discussed, and I've been very reluctant to even do so. I take accusations of sexual abuse very seriously, and I've been doing such extensive research about the accusations from October 7th that I am definitely on a list for Googling rapes in Israel during Hamas's attack so many times. Listen, I don't care what anyone says. I will never consider sexual assault a valid part of resistance. It's a horrific act that I condemn with all my being. And anyone who commits it should have their dicks cut off and shoved down their throat. Is it possible that rapes occurred on 10/7? Absolutely. Rapes happen in church. It's not unfathomable that they would happen when breaking out of a concentration camp. But Hamas hasn't used rape as a weapon in the past, and there isn't sufficient evidence yet that they occurred, with zero testimonies from rape victims. Again, I'm not saying no sexual abuse took place, and even one woman being raped is too many, but none of the accusations being verified, Israel refusing to let the UN Human Rights Office investigate because it says they are biased, and there not being even one victim coming forward are reasons why many view the claims of mass rape as Israeli propaganda. Falsely accusing racial groups of being rapists has a history of being used to dehumanize people. Now, people denying that rapes occurred because they are anti-Israel is totally possible. But the fact that Israel consistently lies, making it impossible to believe anything they say, is more probable. I typically believe the victim, but there are no victims coming forward claiming they were sexually assaulted. And the testimonies from eyewitnesses that claim they saw these things taking place have tons of holes in them. There are plenty of victim testimonies and reports by human rights organizations that Palestinians, including many children, have been sexually assaulted while in Israeli custody, and that rapes took place during the Nakba, yet there doesn't seem to be as much international outcry when the victims are Palestinian. Also, in Cyprus, 5 Israelis are on trial for gang raping a British woman this year. And if you're against denying rape claims by the victim, then you will be disgusted to hear that in 2019, a woman who accused 12 Israelis of gang raping her, also in Cyprus, some of which were the sons of senior Israeli officials, the woman was found guilty of making up those claims and only recently had that conviction overturned by the Cyprus Supreme Court after she spent 4 weeks in a prison there, which sounds like Israel's MO. Criminalize anyone who calls Israelis out on their hideous crimes. And by the way, these Israelis aren't accused of raping someone after escaping a concentration camp that is Gaza after being trapped there for 16 years. They did it while on vacation. In yet another move highlighting how Israel controls the American government, the House of Representatives approved a resolution that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, which makes no sense considering there are Jews all over the world that are anti-Zionists. And denying the complexities of Jews and thinking we are all the same is what anti-Semitism actually is. The co-sponsor of this dumb resolution, by the way, was Max Miller, who you might know is the congressman who recently said we should turn Palestine into a parking lot. This resolution isn't about protecting Jews from anti-Semitism. It's about silencing anyone speaking out about Israel's ongoing oppression of the Palestinian people. Period. So apparently, anti-Semitism no longer means prejudice against Jews. and now means anyone who is against Israel's flagrant human rights violations, violent dispossession, dehumanization, and murder of the Palestinian people. Here I thought Israel only stole things from Palestinians, but now they're stealing our word, which totally seems like the term formerly known as antisemitism. Follow me across social media at Jonathan Randall, or don't, whatever. I would really appreciate your support on my Ko-fi page. I will put the link to that in the description. Israel has just told so many lies that it is impossible to believe anything they say. Between flat out lying and labeling anyone who speaks out against their violations of Palestinian human rights as being anti-Semitic, Israel has lost all credibility. Not believing information that comes out of Israel doesn't make you anti-Semitic. It makes you a critical thinker. I'm Jonathan Randall. How you like me now?